Come one, come all to the second and final JT Miller emergency podcast put out by us, Pucks.net. It happened. It finally happened. And it's not the Vancouver Canucks losing to the Dallas Stars. It's JT Miller being traded to the New York Rangers. We are off and running hot here. Gita, are you there?
I'm here. I was waiting for a link. I don't know what I was thinking.
I had a rash. Do I have you as well?
I think so.
Yeah,
Am I here?
You're here.
The question that's really pressing on my mind: Do we give JT Miller a standing ovation when he returns to Vancouver?
I just kind of thought that this might be the last episode of Pawn. Now that he's traded, I mean, what do we do? What do we do for content for the next 8 years?
8 years. We've spent a long time talking about this, about a big trade happening. We've spent many podcasts talking about how they need to get rid of JT Miller or extend JT Miller, and the JT Miller era is finally over in Vancouver. And Arash, I'll ask you first. JT Miller is traded. How do you feel?
I feel great considering that on your list we have a 2015 first-round draft pick being returned to the Vancouver Canucks.
God,
that's great.
Damn it.
2015, let's see who we could get. No, I'm going to do it right now. 2015 NHL draft, 13th overall. It was just the start of the Boston 3 straight selections. So it was Zaboral, DeBrusk, Senyshyn. We could oh my God, we could draft Barzal, Kyle Connor, Thomas Chabot, Brock Besser again. We could have 2 Brockers.
Arash, are you doing an Elliot Friedman like car cast?
No, I don't have any. That's not my beeping. I'm not doing dishes. No, I'm not.
Oh. I'm not in an art gallery, which is where he was when the trade happened.
I heard that too.
So, what a cool guy. He's just at the opening of an art gallery. How do I feel about the JT Miller trade? I mean, listen, Jim Rutherford came out with his article with Gary Mason of the Globe and Mail and just really, shot that first shot and just letting this market know that the trade that they're going to make specifically for JT Miller, they're probably not going to win this trade. They're not going to get an instant replacement for him. They're probably not going to get that top tier, prospect. But the return that they got with Filip Chytil, Victor Mancini, and the 2025 first. I mean, Chytil comes with his own issues. He's quite a talented centerman that's 6'3". But has a history of concussion issues. Victor Mancini, I believe, was a 5th-round pick of the Rangers and has actually, been pretty hulking, big defensive defenseman. Can skate to get by, and we'll see what happens with that. There's a huge market for these right-handed defensemen. This is the Hronek trade to me. Mm-hmm. All over again, where that first-round pick that they got back. I just think between here and March, whatever, 7th or 8th, when the deadline is there, everyone's going to tell you they're going to try and go and get who they want with that pick. I mean, the sexier idea is, depending on how competitive they really want to be, is like, do they trade their first round pick this year and keep the Rangers pick, just big braining it. But I think it was, for everyone in this market, I think it was time to move on. They clear up that cap space. They get off that contract, which, man, no salary retained, and Chytil signed, I believe, for 2 more years.
That's the big get,
4.3, yeah.
That they actually don't have to retain any of this contract.
It's delightful. I mean, we all love it's hard to knock what JT Miller, brought in terms of points and productions and overall his ability. But that was a long contract, being paid till he's 38. So for them to walk away with it off the books is great.
Think about it. Last week we had a big trade on a Friday night, and you needed to get a third team involved in order to make it all work because of the money.
Totally.
In this case, in this case, like that, it's not a thing that seems to happen a lot anymore, where you can trade a big contract away.
Yeah, year
Well,
2 of an 8-year deal.
Yeah, and well, I also think that with the salary cap going up, the amount it's going up, that you're probably going to see quite a few teams be a little bit more palatable on taking back money after the flat cap era. And I've always been a proponent about the JT Miller trade, that it's going to be the trade that happens after the JT Miller trade that is going to kind of show more of the North Star direction of where this franchise wants to go. And now, that frees up. We have a few. Well, what is it? Yeah, we have 6 weeks until the deadline, and then we also have the big next marker, which is July 1st, when Elias Pettersson's trade protection kicks in, and we have this chunk of time to see that if everything's right in that dressing room, if the big bad boogeyman is out, does the alien come back? So it's going to be a really interesting kind of period for the Vancouver Canucks and their fans.
Kita, how are you feeling after this trade?
Much like Arash, I also saw the comparable to like the Bo Horvat trade. We had been warned, and as we were all like, refreshing our Twitter feeds this afternoon, waiting to see who Vancouver got in return, we were all bracing ourselves to be disappointed.
Yep.
And so there was it was anticlimactic, but also when do we get to be involved in a big trade? So that was kind of exciting. But again, I agree with Arash. It's not this trade, right? It's the next one.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next one? What are you going to use these bits and pieces to get for the Canucks, and how are you going to improve?
And what second line center to take defensive zone draws is that going to be, based on what we saw tonight in a cluster fork loss against the Dallas Stars?
Yeah, well, I made that joke in our little group chat there, that I just feel like the Vancouver Canucks will never win a faceoff again until the history of time, just with the amount of draws that JT Miller was taking. But no, it's reflecting back on JT Miller's time as a Vancouver Canuck, he's an incredibly talented and passionate player, and I go back to COVID and the bubble and all, there's all the drama and all the headaches that happen with the Benning regime, and COVID happening, and them having JT Miller having to come out and say, hey, we're actually not healthy enough to play, and then the Jim Benning wedding, where they let all of their good free agents go and they replaced them with Nate Schmidt and Braden Holtby and all. So out of this period, I think we can look back on JT Miller being one of those real cornerstone Canucks, a la Ryan Kessler in a sense. I mean, Kessler had more playoff success at a Selke, but man, I hope he's happy going back to New York. I hope he can help that team over there and kind of continue off the momentum that they had in the last little bit. And we'll see what Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvan have cooked up for this squad in the next few weeks here.
We knew this day was coming. We knew this day had to come. The best response to that, because of all the noise that's been around this team centering around JT Miller, but the problem is that all that noise was of the Canucks' creation.
Yeah, they did a really good job of making it as loud and as noisy as what was the Kanye West, his last tour with No More Parties in LA, Arash? Life of Pablo.
Yes, Life of Pablo. Yes.
Yeah, the noise in Vancouver was louder than the Life of Pablo tour, which literally there were concerns of structural damage. But it was their own doing. They somehow seemingly inflated their trade chances and sewered them in the same moment in the same tenure here, and I'm just glad it's done. It's so nice that, again, it's not done. We have some time to sit and go, all right, let's see what Elias Pettersson looks like with the boogeyman out, like Arash said, and let's see kind of who comes up and Chytil. But gone is the when will they, who will they, what will they look like. It's over. You can kind of relax, and you can talk about a hockey team again and a push to the playoffs. So it's just it's a little bit of closure.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit of closure, and well, I mean, it's interesting because I look at like the move the Calgary Flames made yesterday, and I thought that was just a if there ever was like a tidy piece of business, that was such a tidy piece of business for Craig Conroy and getting Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee, like two players in you know at the age of 25, productive. I mean, Joel Farabee had a tough season this year, but Morgan Frost is like this sneaky good kind of analytics darling. And they had to give up Jacob Peltier and the corpse of Andre Kuzmenko in a second and a second and a seventh pick. So yeah, I mean, we look at kind of what's like moving forward now. I think the discussion has to be okay. I'm really curious in that if they do go full bore, like if within the next bit, if it does seem that Elias Pettersson isn't turning the corner, then you do have to look at players like Brock Besser. You do have to maybe consider Thatcher Demko, and then these cuts. I mean, the UFA class isn't great, and the cap technically rising, I think actually has a slight hindrance on the Canucks now because the teams now are would be willing to take on, like, people have more money to play with.
Yeah.
So either they want to keep those players that they thought are too expensive, or those players that would move on from other franchises are now probably available to other teams that they said, oh hey, we thought we had $3 million, but we actually have $7 or $8 million to play with in the next salary cap iteration. So yeah, a lot of interesting stuff gonna happen here in the next few weeks for sure.
Let's talk about Filip Chytil for a second. The Vancouver Canucks, they have two Elias Petterssons, and they now have two players named Filip and spelled that way. The big concern for Chytil coming in is he has had some long-term key injuries. He had a really bad concussion that kind of took him out most of last year, and he's kind of and missed a lot of the COVID shortened season, or sorry, the 21 season. So I think anytime it was fantasy booking trades or talking about which players could go back from the Rangers, when Cheadle's name came up, it was just he's got injury history. So the question is, if let's be optimistic and say Chytil can be healthy, what is his role on this team? Does he get elevated to a second line center, or does he get a reasonably sensible third line role as they try to build that center depth up through this inevitable trade? What was that sound?
I think Gita for sure is making Rowan's science fair project because Rowan decided to go to bed a bit early.
I realize I'm making my bed.
Nice, as you do. As the Canucks have made their bed, and now they will lie in it. No, so this is the kicker with Filip Chytil, is that this is a player, again, 6'3", offensively talented. Yeah, he's had concussion issues. The problem is, by default, he has to be the number 2 center, and he has to fill in that spot while he's here.
Right.
The other negative is this guy doesn't win draws. He's I think he's 43% on his career. He's not he's not that. I don't know if he's even a 3C. That's my preference of a third line center is Jean-Gabriel Pageau, who I'm the guy who wins 56% of face-offs, penalty kill, all that. But he's still 25,
all I'm hearing
and
is
we'll
the
see.
Canucks settled.
I mean, they, just like my adoring girlfriend Katie, I came along and she was just he'll do. I could do better, but you know what?
This is enough.
Dating stuff. this is enough. He's fun. He's funny. He has a personality.
Arash, you bring up a very good point. Chytil is having a career year in the face-off dot at 45.7%.
Yeah, I think that was on Hockey Reference or something. But yeah, I mean, again, this is just I feel this trade is an unfinished product.
Yeah.
Right.
And like could the Canucks have gotten someone like Braden Schneider if they had bit the bullet and said, yeah, we'll retain for 7 years? Maybe. I don't think the Canucks had the appetite. Well, I mean,
7 years of Miller cap, dead cap.
How about 7 years of OEL, pal? Get ready for it. If they've done it before, they'll do it again. But yeah, so I'm really just curious. I'm just really curious, like, the next move and what this team needs. Like, yeah, they could go and get a top 4 D-man. Yes, could they go and see if there's like a disgruntled center somewhere? I mean, the options aren't really great. I mean, Casey Middlestad, but again, Casey Middlestad's not that like number 2 center. He's more of a winger, if anything. Mm-hmm. And yeah, again, that's the other thing is now teams have money. Teams know that next season they'll have a bit more money to play with. So, yeah, I think the big thing now is just figuring. I mean, we saw Quinn Hughes tonight, laboring some form of injury. I don't know if that's. I'm not going to speculate if it's a lower upper body injury there, but yeah, this window where they decide what they're going to do is going to be within like the next 3 weeks, I think. And from there, the cuts can go much deeper on this team for them to retool and everything turns from now on, from this moment forward, is what do we do to keep Quinn Hughes in Vancouver? That's it. Stop, and that's it. That's the only thing.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say we're going to take this time to see what Elias Pettersson is like without the boogie monster or the boogeyman. So Gita, what do you want to see? What do you want to see from Elias Pettersson in the next couple weeks here?
Well, I mean, people were putting money on whether he was going to score 3 goals today. That clearly did not happen. Yeah, I want to see the monkey that was on his back, literally, I guess, is now off it. So what? Like, there are no more excuses. There's nothing else left. There's no more noise. There's no more pressure to sign a long-term contract.
Mm-hmm.
There's none of that. They got rid of your nemesis, so you won. Now you have to you have to put up or shut up.
Yeah. I'm sure we talked about this on 2 weeks ago when I was on the show, but there is a chance here where this noise along Elias Pettersson becomes some next level of nuclear. Mm-hmm. If he does not turn this around, if he does not figure out. And listen, tonight, I mean, yeah, he was a bit of an analytics darling, but again, like, just Bambi on the ice. I just think he has like the desire and power to go and crash the net and stuff, but he's getting pushed off so easily by defenders and people can point at injuries and everything, but I'm like, just injuries to a point. If you're healthy enough to play, then you should be figuring out a way to contribute. And now we're reaching more than 12 months where he hasn't been here. So
we're literally seeing Quinn Hughes taped up and still playing. Like,
dude, being a better player.
There are no excuses.
Dude, Quinn Hughes is like taped up with like scotch tape, and it's like your bumper's like missing. You put like you got black tape rolled up, and he's just going out there being like, "Yeah, I'm still a Hart Trophy contender here. Like, let me go." So yeah, even with the game tonight, I mean, they were. I mean, they got goalied a little bit by Jake Ottinger, but again, like grade A scoring chances, I don't think they generated too much there. And they had a great start, which I think was a bit of this. Dad's not home. It's just us, and we better figure some stuff out.
Finally,
then
we
they
can
kind
do
of
things our way.
yeah, we can do things our way, and it turns out, wow, you got the pizza order wrong. It's great. But yeah, so yeah, that's the thing I'm wrapped up around is, I think Bick Nazar said it really well, where he says, I think one thing Canucks fans need to do or be prepared with is being okay living in this static for the next little bit. And I know this is the first domino to fall, with JT Miller and everything, but they still need to just give this a few members of this team a little bit more time to figure some stuff out. And if they don't, they're going to make extra moves. And hey, man, if they had the cojones to move off of JT Miller, they have the cojones to move off Elias Pettersson.
Yep.
And man, like just to think about this, guys, before I shut up, think about the fact that the cap is going up. You have Elias Pettersson locked at 11.6. There's enough, belief probably throughout the league that, hey, how often do superstar centermen signed to a long-term deal at the age of 26 come around? And with that, think about the amount of teams now that are saying, oh yeah, we didn't think we could afford him before.
Right.
Now we can the cap's going up, $5, $8, $9, $10 million. The kind of stuff that they would be able to cook up and put this into a retool along with that 2025 pick that they got from the Rangers, man, like if they're smart enough and they're gutsy enough, they could do some really, really cool things with this roster in quite a quick succession.
It's a relief that he was moved.
Yeah.
When you see these big contracts that they handed out, there's kind of this concern that they're not going to move on from them, and they're not going to. It's like you gotta stick with them. But to like just the earnest, mindset that this isn't working, we're done. It's a relief, and it leaves me optimistic that more things can happen from now until the trade deadline, or sorry, till the July 1.
Now that one Band-Aid has been pulled, like they're one piece of this core that that had been together for years now, has been moved on. It almost feels like it would hurt less if other pieces had to be moved on.
Well, you just like I've kind of had this thought rolling around in my head, like the Toronto Maple Leafs have their stale core. It's not stale. They have their core that they have stuck with for their big four forever. And it's not that they're not successful in the regular season. They're very successful. They're very dangerous. It's they just get unlucky at the absolute 11th hour of Game 7 and they lose. But there's all this optimism. They're like, you know what? If they just had one bounce go this way, if this happened and that happened, like there's not a reason to give up on that core, and you can justify it because they're four incredible players. With this team, there's with the Canucks core, there's inconsistencies, there's off seasons, there's these types of drama, and there's one real true playoff round victory to hang your hat on, and I think this organization and this market kind of started to be like, these are our we have to protect this. And because there wasn't that ongoing success of always being in the playoffs, you can kind of give your head a shake and go, no, this isn't working. We've seen what other teams do with their stale cores. Let's be real with ourselves. I feel with that domino falling, there's this sense of reality now, and it's a relief. I don't know about you guys, but I'm very relieved that a move has happened.
They had to. I mean, we would trade our core for Toronto's stale core.
Oh yeah, you don't have to play the Bruins in the first round in the Western Conference. Come on, that'd be great.
Yeah. One thing I'll chime in on, just because I've been thinking about it for a while. If they have the cojones to make an Elias Pettersson trade, the one destination that keeps popping into my head is the Columbus Blue Jackets, and not only for Elias Pettersson, but again, if you think about the cap going up, they have, unfortunately, they have that cap space from the passing of Johnny Gaudreau, and now Sean Monahan is on LTIR. You could argue, like, you could technically, guesstimate or fancy take this. You could do Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser, and knowing that Columbus is interested in Brock Besser, they like the type of player he is, and they need that other winger. Like, the things they could package and do here to completely revamp, like, this could be such an interesting tonal retool, like, on the fly. It's like, literally, it just reminds me of like a jet in the air, like Air Force One being refueled while it's still in the air. You know, like the really cool stuff they could do. Like, I'm sure Adam Fantilli would be on in that trade. Denton Matejchuk, who's looking so good and NHL ready. You could talk about Kent Johnson, like, the amount of stuff you could do to make this team really cool, and then maybe that's enough for Quinn Hughes to be like, hey, okay, yeah, I can see some stuff is cooking, and maybe you get some players in. And Batch mentioned this to us, Ryan, where maybe it's about also acquiring players that understand the market a little better. It's just like. Not to Don Cherry this and be like, oh, we just need some Saskatchewan kids, like, not that, but
just today needs more Saskatchewan kids.
Put that on my tombstone. Always wanted Rashma Marzadeh, always wanted more Saskatchewan boys. Anyway, no, but like, just in terms of players that we found with this core, like, there was a lot of complaining about the media. There was a lot of complaining about, and I'm like, listen, this media environment in this city has not been nearly as negative as it has been in the past through, like, at least the voices we had in this market, media access, all this stuff. So getting players that know, oh yeah, I'm playing hockey in Canada. Of course it's like this. I get it. Yeah, no, I know. It's like, when I was 12, I had an HF Boards account, and I went and crapped on players, and now I got drafted in the first round. Like, I know what this is all about, kind of deal.
You talking about Connor Bedard?
We'll see if his mom allowed him internet. He didn't allow him McDonald's.
I have a question for each of you as we kind of wind down here. Are the Canucks in a place to move? Let's say that they move JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, and Brock Besser before the trade deadline this year. From what you've seen this team right now, and the returns you're kind of visualizing, is there a way that the Canucks can trade those three guys and still compete to make the playoffs?
I'll let you go.
They're so inconsistent. It's neither. I guess they could make the playoffs. They could also not make the playoffs. That's how inconsistent they are.
Yeah.
They were on a little bit of a roll, and I feel like the timing of the trade kind of threw them off today.
Yeah, a little atu ratu, and you go, and regardless of perceived locker room issues or alleged rifts, like, removing this huge part of your roster and huge part of your team is going to affect affect the rest of the team. It's going to affect the roster one way and another. So it's a bit of a shock to the system in Dallas today. I didn't necessarily dislike it. I thought I think a 5-3 final score was not really accurate. It doesn't tell the story, but again, it all comes down to consistency. You're 3 wins in a row for the first time in 2 months, and, like, I don't know if they've won 4 games in a row this year. So playoff teams are consistent.
That's the thing. Like, if you can't string a bunch of games together, like, what are you even limping into the playoffs to do? And if you're going to remove those 3 key components of the past few years and bring in guys from all over the place. Like, I don't know if you have the same expectation that they would have the chemistry and gel quickly enough to get into the playoffs. Like, we're a week away from the what do you call it? The
Four
Four
Nations.
Nations.
Jeez. It's sneaking up on you. Arash, like, are we kind of looking like we're looking past the playoffs as is this market looking past the playoffs in terms of this season and what the core of this team looks like and the moves they're going to make?
I think this market, I mean, I don't know why this market would want this iteration of this team to make the play. Like, I just, you're going to go and you're going to get shellacked by, Vegas, Edmonton. Like, it just doesn't, make sense in that way.
And this year, deservedly.
Yeah, this year deservedly. And, I'll just to say this to anyone that might be listening on regards to Elias Pettersson. I think Canucks fans need to be prepared that Elias Pettersson potentially leaves Vancouver. And yeah, he puts up 95 points a season somewhere else. And that's great for him.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever Elias Pettersson is on this Vancouver Canucks roster, I want no part of. Listen, like, I'll just say this. They make that Elias Pettersson trade with Carolina last year, where it was Natchez and someone, Kotkaniemi maybe, and another piece. Yeah, they're in the Western Conference Final playing against Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think you can debate that. Just strictly from, even if they had 70% of EP40 in that series or in that playoff run, they're in the Western Conference Final, and we saw that Dallas was an older, kind of slower team. You could debate maybe they make that magical run to the final, where, I mean, I don't know how good they do against Florida, but that's the thing. But to just be prepared that it's fine. Like, some players aren't going to be the best versions of themselves in this market. We saw that with Elias Pettersson, that he can reach that, but for a calendar year, he has not been that player. And you cannot risk for 7 more years for whatever this version of Elias Pettersson to be an $11.6 million sub 60 to sub 60 point center. And so, to answer your question, Brian, in a really long-winded way, I want to have longevity, and I want to compete, and I want this team to compete on an every night basis, and however it takes to get there. We're getting older. Our parents are getting older. People that are listening probably have family members that are diehard Canucks fans, or maybe they're no longer with us and they were diehard Canucks fans. There's no time to waste anymore with ifs and whats and hopes and maybes and clapping our hands and snapping our fingers and hoping that if we just clap hard enough, Elias Pettersson will just come back and play for us better. And this isn't Tinkerbell. This is a professional sports franchise that there's a lot of hopes and dreams linked to the success of this team. And just from where we are, I think they have a lot of room to make some cool moves here that'll set them up for the foreseeable future.
Winding down, I'm going to ask each of you this, and I'll ask myself this. What's one thing you will miss, one positive thing you will miss about JT Miller?
Oh. Winning faceoffs is great. We'll
Damn
never
it.
see that again.
Yeah, that's the one for me too.
Yeah. I'm about JT Miller. I feel that when JT Miller was at his best, there was really only to a select few another player that really personified, I feel, what it was to be a Vancouver Canuck, at his peaks, at his high peaks of his passion. Ryan, I wrote that Botchford article, and you helped me edit it and put those photos in and everything. And the one the one photo that I remember so well is after their Game 7 loss to Dallas. It's JT Miller just hunched over the net
Yeah.
with his stick and just looking not sad, but like pissed off, like angry that he's like he wanted to win every night. He wanted to win, and that's what that unfortunately we needed that without the lows that came with the emotional roller coaster that was JT Miller. But for the times that he reached his peak, man, there's a reason why at WWE events people were chanting JT Miller's name and all that stuff within this market.
Gita, what about you? One positive thing you'll miss about JT Miller?
Much like Arash, like when things are like clicking on all cylinders, it seemed like the Canucks had a real leader in this guy. I mean, we didn't know about all the tension and toxicity behind the scenes, but on the surface of things, it looked like this group of guys had a leader.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what all of his issues kind of boil down to. It's just this like kind of misplaced, passion and misplaced, vocal leadership. And like, I don't think this is a bad person. I don't think he means ill will, but he has challenges. He's a difficult personality, and he has challenges and misplaced emotions. So I kind of feel for the guy, the old man. But it was funny. Amanda and I were watching the game tonight, and she assumed JT Miller was the captain of the team. And I laughed, and she's like, "Why are you laughing at me for being incorrect?" I'm like, "I'm laughing because that is such a issue or a thing that surrounded JT Miller with his time in Vancouver. Who's the captain? Who's the leader? Who's the loud one? Who's the vocal one? Who's leading by example?" So
it's so misleading. I feel like his personality or the way it's been portrayed has been so misleading. And all the stuff that you kind of heard this last week is like how people really wanted to see him in a dressing room like Colorado's, where he's definitely not the number one voice, and he would be told to sit down.
Yeah.
I imagine at one point you went over to Amanda and you're like, "No, babe, that's not the captain. Do you see that small boy that looks like he's on Lexapro that can skate like the wind? That's our captain, baby. That's our boy."
I love that. Let's end it there. I love that the JT Miller discourse is done for now in this market until we watch him intently in the shadows play for the Rangers.
You're not gonna make us talk about him on Monday?
We'll see what happens. And I want to thank everybody for listening here in the chat and on the podcast. And I want to thank Gita, and I want to thank you, Arash, for joining at such short notice on a Friday night to talk about this. That it does not go unnoticed, and
that we don't have any other plans on a Friday night.
Hey, we're cool people. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on the next podcast. And once again, Chytil and JT Miller swapping jerseys. JT Miller's back wearing a blue shirt. And Public Enemy and Doghouse occupant number 1, Erik Brannstrom, goes back to the Rangers. So we'll see what all these assets are used for, and we'll see who will win a face-off for the Vancouver Canucks. This wasn't really a post-game show, but the Canucks lost 5-3 to the Dallas Stars, 30% in the face-off dot. So the loss of JT Miller is already felt. On that note, good night, everybody.